Jin Woo now was on the verge of ending her life in a brutal battle. As he raised his weapon to deliver the final blow, she suddenly surrendered, her voice cutting through the chaos. To his astonishment, the warrior was a woman. Removing her helmet, she revealed her features and begged for mercy. She insisted that as a knight, it was her sacred duty to protect her lord at all costs. She believed that if she survived, her people would continue to thrive. Unmoved, he began to turn away, but just as he did, she lunged at him once more. Before her strike could land, Fang intervened, shielding Jin Woo from the attack. Confused, Jin Woo demanded to know her true intentions. In a panic, the elf begged for her life, vowing to do anything he asked. She then revealed that her family held the entry permit and that if Jin Woo spared her, she would lead him to it. She also claimed to know the locations of every permit on the upper floors and offered to provide that information if he guaranteed her family's safety. Jin Woo soon realized that her family had deliberately hidden the permits. Intrigued, Jin Woo demanded to know who they really were. Meanwhile, far away on a desolate island, a sinister flying ant had infiltrated the area, leaving devastation in its wake. Back at the demon castle, the elf introduced herself as Exile, the eldest daughter of the Radier family. Jin Woo, however, was far more interested in the system she served. Pressing her for answers, he asked if she had ever been tormented by voices commanding her to kill humans. She denied it but admitted to hearing a different, more ominous directive, one to protect the space they occupied. She explained that her people had come from the demon realm. Jin Woo's curiosity deepened, and he asked what they were preparing for. Exile froze, suddenly acting mechanically. She shared that they had been preparing for war against a formidable enemy, one so powerful that the demons had to unite to even stand a chance. However, before she could provide further details, an error message appeared, and Exile fainted in Jin Woo's arms. Left without answers, meanwhile, back at the Hunter Association, the news of the devastating attack on the Japanese outlying islands reached them. The assault had resulted in 294 casualties, with numerous hunters also suffering heavy losses. Gunny warned that if the flying ants developed stronger flight capabilities, they could easily reach the southern part of the country, potentially devastating it. The raid on Jeju Island was now officially underway, and the stakes had never been higher. Back at the castle, Exile, having recovered, led Jin Woo to her family's home. Upon their arrival, her father initially regarded Jin Woo with suspicion, not recognizing him at first. However, when he realized who Jin Woo was, the one who had defeated Vulcan and Métis, his demeanor shifted. Reluctantly, he handed over the entry permit, realizing that he could no longer oppose the powerful invader standing before him. But Jin Woo didn't stop there. He asked to borrow Exile, explaining that she knew the locations of the other permits. After some hesitation and reassurances from Jin Woo that her safety was guaranteed, her father reluctantly agreed, and Exile was sent with him. Elsewhere, scientists were busy dissecting the flying ant, examining its every detail with intense scrutiny. At the castle, Jin Woo continued his ascent through the floors and found himself on the 89th floor. There he noticed that both Igris and Tank had leveled up. One had earned the title of Elite Knight, while the other remained a knight. Jin Woo mused that one of them now rivaled the strength of an S-ranked adventurer, while the other was comparable to a rank A adventurer. Meanwhile, Exile had prepared an array of gifts for the nobles on the higher floors, hoping to use them as bribes in exchange for permits. However, Jin Woo dismissed the need for such offerings, stating that permits should be obtained through skill, not bribery. Exile warned him that the floors above level 9 were controlled by high-ranking nobles who were far stronger than the weaker enemies he had faced so far. Attaining permits through mere conversation would be impossible. Jin Woo bluntly agreed, remarking that no one would bother talking to someone they considered weak, and promised that he would elevate her family to become the most powerful in this realm. Exile, still curious, asked him why he spared her family. Jin Woo replied without hesitation, "Because I like you," leaving her stunned, blushing, and embarrassed. Together they ascended to the 90th floor. At this point, Jin Woo faced stronger monsters and realized that Exile was right. Meanwhile, back at the Hunter Guild, Mr. Choi and Chaha received an urgent call for the 4th raid on Jeju Island. All the S-rank hunters in the country had been mobilized, and Chaha wondered if this meant Jin Woo would be involved as well. Mr. Choi informed her that they would be cooperating with Japan, as the first flying ants had also been threatening that region. Chaha asked when the raid would commence, but no exact time was given. Mr. Choi believed it would start soon, as Japan's ultra-large guild was scheduled to arrive later today to discuss the situation. Meanwhile, Jin Woo reached the 100th floor of the Demon Castle. As he stepped onto the floor, he noticed something ominous overhead. A wyvern, large and menacing, circling in the sky. To his horror, the demon lord Baron himself stepped off the creature's back, radiating an overwhelming aura that seemed to distort the air. The pressure from Baron's presence was immediate. His dark armor gleamed like obsidian, and his cold eyes locked onto Jin Woo. Baron took to the air again, summoning a swarm of demons, dark, twisted creatures that charged at Jin Woo with bloodlust in their eyes. Izile, standing beside him, froze in fear at the sight of the swarm and Baron's terrifying presence in the air. Her heart raced, but Jin Woo, ever calm, quickly summoned his army, now empowered by his monarch's domain. Shadows of his forces surged forward, easily overpowering the demons. Despite their victory, Izile's unease remained. "Can you really defeat him?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jin Woo remained focused. But before he could make his next move, Baron unleashed a devastating lightning storm. The strike tore through his army, decimating a large portion of his forces. Jin Woo felt his mana deplete rapidly as the storm raged on. Shielding Izile from a bolt of lightning, he absorbed the brunt of the attack, the lightning paralyzing his muscles and draining his energy with every hit. Reacting swiftly, Jin Woo activated his dash and stealth skills, moving with incredible speed toward Baron. However, Baron sensed his every move, blocking his charge with ease. Jin Woo's stealth failed as Baron's aura pierced through his invisibility. Before he could react, Baron hurled him to the ground with Baron unleashed a homing lightning breath. The blast was blinding, but Fang intervened, shielding Jin Woo from the attack. In one brutal motion, he decapitated the creature, causing it to crash violently to the ground. Baron was temporarily grounded without his mount. Jin Woo seized the opportunity, focusing on Baron. The clash between his forces and the demon lord grew fiercer, but Baron's overwhelming strength showed no sign of waning. In a brutal exchange, Baron grabbed Jin Woo by the head, threatening to crush him. Jin Woo struggled, but Baron's grip was unyielding. Just as Baron raised his sword for the final blow, Igris intervened with a mighty roar. He intercepted the strike. In one final effort, he unleashed another lightning breath, tearing through Jin Woo's forces. Jin Woo's mana was dangerously low, and the battle was draining him. Baron summoned his blades, engaging Jin Woo in a high-speed duel. They traded blows, but Baron's strength began to overwhelm Jin Woo. The demon lord disarmed him, leaving Jin Woo vulnerable. At the critical moment, Izile threw her blade, distracting Baron just long enough for Jin Woo to summon the last of his strength. With a roar, Jin Woo ripped off Baron's arms, disarming him. Baron tried one last lightning breath, but Jin Woo was ready. With a powerful uppercut, he struck Baron square in the chest, sending a shockwave through the battlefield as the demon lord's head was blasted from his body. The battle was over. Jin Woo stood victorious, breathing heavily and covered in sweat. He collected Baron's soul, completing his soul collection quest. With the demon lord's defeat, his path forward was clear. He turned to Izile. "Go," he said firmly. "Tell your father that the Radairu family is destined to rise to the top of the tower."